Everybody, this is Hondo Carpenter. Great day to you. Happy Tuesday to you. We sit here today in a really unique position. We are 2 weeks away from the start of training camp, and we're in the middle of a series on biggest questions heading into camp. And in part one, we looked at the battle between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Who wins it? How do they win it? And today, we're going to look at three more big questions going into camp. A couple of them are kind of position battles, although I think at least I believe I have a good feel who the starter is going to be. And then the third is another question that isn't necessarily personnel, meaning starter related or 53-man roster related. So let's dig right in, if you don't mind, and just really kick it and talk about it. The first thing I want to talk about is retention. During OTAs and minicamp, the Raiders were able to install everything that they had new up to that point. Now, there's some more new things that are going to be implemented in training camp, but every single thing that they had, I was told pretty much all of the defenses in and probably 90% of the offense. So almost all is installed. And you may remember I hammered this point because a lot of people, when you get to OTAs and minicamp, who's looking good? Who's looking good? Who's looking good? And I understand people's desire. I understand why people are desirous of that information, but the off season is for installation, not evaluation. That's why the only evaluating I did was on things that you couldn't tell without pads on. But now that we're headed into camp, how much are these guys able to retain? If they're able to retain a high amount of it, if they're able to come in great shape with high retention, it puts the Raiders that far ahead on the ladder. And that's really important. Now, a couple things I want to remind you about retention. The first is physically. They expect these guys, a lot of people have played high school football. And so, the first 2 weeks of camp are really just about getting in shape. I get all that. I understand that. That's not the way it is at major college, and it's certainly not the way it is in the NFL. You are a professional. You are expected to show up day one. A lot of teams do the beep test or they do a quick test just to make sure you're in shape. But you're expected to show up in shape. You're expected to come ready to play football day one. So are you retaining where you were physically? And then the other is, are you retaining the knowledge that you gained over the off season? These guys have all been given their playbooks. They've got a lot. They don't, maybe some of them don't have all of the new stuff, but they've got everything ready to go for camp. Now, I want to go back because I mentioned this yesterday, but when they get back the Monday after the 4th of July, everyone is focused like a laser on camp. Guys are eating completely healthy now and able to show up on time. It isn't like they haven't been eating healthy all year. But between the end of mini camp and the end of the 4th of July weekend, they do eat a little bit differently, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's not like they're excessively overweight. I know one guy one time told me that between the end of mandatory mini camp and really getting ready that first Monday after July 4th, he gained 17 pounds, but he was a big human. He weighed 340, 350 pounds. So he was able to cut it very quickly by the time camp got there. But are you in shape and have you retained what you have? That is a very big deal. And these guys are going to be working out together a lot, getting ready for training camp. How much have you retained? Now, the first few days of camp, you're not in pads, but they are going to work those guys tremendously difficult, making and trying to see how much they've retained. So they're going to line guys up. It's all filmed, and they're going to be able to go in those first couple of days of camp and just say, listen, XYZ, man, we're calling plays that he hasn't heard since mandatory minicamp. He did the exact right thing. So those first few days, It's really review. It's everything's filmed, and they want to know how much did you retain. Now, I've seen guys move down the depth chart a lot because they showed up and didn't retain. I remember one guy in particular, he was a running back, and he was a guy that was selected in between mandatory mini camp and training camp. He didn't pick up his playbook. He got into camp, and the first or second day, bam, he was demoted from 1 to 4. And so those first few days, even though pads aren't on, they're running through everything from OTAs and mini camps, making sure have guys retain the offense. And they go in and watch the film. They're doing book tests. They're making sure the guys get it so that when they do and the pads come on, they're ready to go. So retention, that's a big camp question. I don't think it's going to be a problem at all in this Raiders team. Just the way they retain throughout the offseason, the way of their attention. I certainly have not talked to every member of the team, but I've talked to some key ones, and none of them have concerns. And so if they're not concerned, I'm not concerned. So, but the first camp question is retention. What have they done retentive wise? What have they done to adjust? What have they done to make sure they know it to get into it? Next, I want to talk about what I think is one of the biggest battles in camp. This is Cody Whitehair, the veteran from the Chicago Bears. He started a bunch of games for Luke Getsy. He comes in from Chicago. Now they have him penciled wanting Jackson Powers Johnson to win the job. There's a lot of expectation at left guard that JPJ is going to be able to win it. I agree with that. He's a rookie, so he's going to have a wide girth for some mistakes. Don't be too concerned about that. I wouldn't be concerned about it if at all if I'm you. I will also say this: I fully expect him to get the benefit of the doubt. I expect him to play a lot more in the preseason, and I'm going to be getting into that later this week, so I'm not going to get into it today. But I expect him to get a lot of reps. But if he falters, Cody Whitehair is a seasoned veteran who can step in immediately and play at a very high level. Remember, Greg Van Roten played very well. I know the fans, for whatever reason, seem to not like Greg. He played very well. But Cody comes in, and he is a guy that is going to produce at a very high level immediately. So I want to watch the maturation of Jackson Powers Johnson. He moves from center to left guard. Their footwork is different. The attention to what you pay attention to is different. When you're center, you look at different things than a left guard. His ability to develop continuity with Colton Miller and Andre James, very difficult. He's in a phone booth. You got Andre James on your right, Colton Miller on your left. How do you handle that? Each guy does things a little bit differently. I'll give you a great example. Kyle Cook, who many of you know, he's been a guest on this podcast many times, a very dear friend of mine, long time, terrific offensive lineman for the Cincinnati Bengals, drafted by the Packers, played a long time, was on 2 Hard Knocks with the Bengals. Great friend of mine. Okay. Great player. And he worked his feet different than other guys. So anytime you change an offensive lineman, it's just different. I'll give you. And so, he's talked about just getting somebody new on your side. How do they pull? Some guys pull with their hand in tight. Some guys pull with their hand extended. They almost go behind the center and then pull their arm. Some guys, it comes up and almost just like a quick hand motion. So that matters because then the center knows what he needs to do so he doesn't knock his guy off center. Footwork. Do you take a wide stance, a short stance, an intermediary stance? How do you like your foot extended? Do you want it at a 90 degree? Do you want it at a 45? Do you do maybe a 30? All of those things. And when you're in a phone booth, that all matters. You got to know, how much room do I need to give this guy? Does he need to change how he does it because of how I move? And guess what? If you're JPJ adjusting on that line with Colton and Andre, it's your job to adjust to them, not their job to adjust to you. That is a big thing. That's a humongous deal on the offensive line. His footwork has to work in unison. I will never forget one time watching a guy, well, I'll tell you who it was, Brian Allen, with a longtime Los Angeles Rams center, dear friend of mine. And his brother Jack had gone on to play for New Orleans. And Brian steps in, and Brian did things. I mean, not Matt. Matt's the other brother. Sorry. Brian did things different than Jack. And so there was, even though they were brothers, there was an adjustment when they were in college because of how they move their bodies. A lot of people don't understand the complexity of movement that goes on inside of an offensive line. So we know what Cody Whitehair can do, but you want your younger players to step up and win those roles. So JPJ is going to get every opportunity to win it. I believe that he will today, but we'll see. And I don't think that's any reflection on Cody. I think he's a very good player. I think it's a reflection on they want to see JPJ get it. Now, JPJ has some things that Cody doesn't. And I think they're the difference between being a very good lineman and an elite lineman. You got to have nasty. Cody is tough. This is not a statement about toughness, but you have to have nasty. Now, Colton Miller, I'm going to use him as an example because this may shock a lot of you. One of the nicest guys in the world. Colton is salt of the earth, but he's got some nasty in him. Now, remember, nasty doesn't mean dirty. Colton Miller will extend that block till he drives you into the dirt. He's going to lay on top of you and hold you down so you're not getting up. If you're a high motor, defensive end like a Max Crosby or defensive tackle, and Colton's able to get you to the ground, he's going to lay on you because he knows you're going to jump up. And if you're not a guy that gives maximum effort like that, he's going to get to the second level. There have been multiple times I've watched Colton Miller take down a guy, and then it was a guy that you knew you weren't really worried about motivation. And Cody Miller goes and picks up a safety as a left tackle. I mean, Colton Miller. I mean, a safety. He's got that nasty, that little bit of, I am playing till the echo of the whistle, not the whistle, the echo of the whistle. And I'm trying to be a road grader and crush anybody in my way. JPJ has that. Now, some guys get to the NFL and they back off a little bit. Sometimes the guys get to the NFL and they're like, man, these are veterans. I don't know. You got to show up day one with some nasty fight. Now, to JPJ's credit, even though there were no pads, he showed some nasty. And if you think his defensive teammates, especially the stars, did not like that, they loved it. There's going to be some interesting connection with him and Colton. That's a whole lot of nasty on one side. Now, you'd never know Colton was nasty. You'd never know JPJ. Well, you'd probably know with JPJ. But that's a trait you can't teach when it comes to offensive alignment. You just can't teach it. You literally can't teach it. And once you do, those guys, I mean, they're long-term incognito 10-year veteran guys. And so that Cody Whitehair, if JPJ can just continue to play, he played, show that nasty, I think he has nothing to worry about. But that's going to be something I'm going to be watching close in camp because Whitehair is very, very talented. The next one I want to talk about may surprise you a little bit. And I want to make it clear, I am a Thayer Munford guy. I like Thayer and I like him a lot. I like Thayer and I like him a lot. I think he's going to win this job and I think he's going to secure himself there. I want to make that clear. But if for whatever reason he were to struggle, you got Cassis Pete, but then you have Delmar Glaze. You know what you got in Cassis. Same way you got with Cody. You got two solid backups there. Both guys with the ability to start, but both guys the Raiders don't want to start. They want a young Thayer. They want JPJ. These are two guys on very team favorable deals, especially Thayer, but they both are on very team favorable deals with plenty of time left. Good thing here. Now, Thayer's got that nasty in him too. And so you put him next to Dylan, who's Mr. Nasty. It's going to be a thing of beauty. I don't expect Cassis or Delmar to beat him out. But I've told you about Delmar Glaze now. He was a prospect, but he goes to the Senior Bowl. He was asked at Maryland to do some things that weren't necessarily in his wheelhouse. The wide zone Raider offense is totally in Delmar Glaze's wheelhouse. Big, but he's athletic. He moves really good. First couple days at the Senior Bowl, he was not good. Took some coaching, and many people believe after the first 2 days, he was the best lineman at the Senior Bowl. I think he is going to push Cassis. I don't necessarily think he's going to beat him out for the backup, but he could. And I think he's got a bright future. He's a guy I think you could see Colton one day retire, no time soon. Move Thayer over to left, boom. Put Delmar in it right. I think you could see that if Colton were to get injured. Not wishing that in the least bit. But Delmar Glaze is a guy, just because of how he took coaching at the Senior Bowl and just some things that he has demonstrated, that right tackle to me is fascinating. I know ideally they want to have Delmar backing up Thayer. Cassis, he can play a couple positions along the line, but it's going to be interesting to watch. Keep this. I'm going to be spending, I always do already, spend a ton of time on the offensive line. That's not going to change. To me, offensive line is a thing of beauty because you watch the offensive line, you watch the defensive line. Those battles. I can't wait to watch Max get some reps. Kuntz get some reps against Delmar. Can't wait to watch JPJ trying to do some stuff with Christian Wilkins. Remember what Max Crosby did to Michael Mayer last year? I mean, I can't wait to watch Brock Bowers out there on an island with Max Crosby. And he's going to look stupid. And he's not stupid, but I mean, he's going to get beat. Max is elite, but it made Michael Mayer better. It's going to make Brock Bowers better. It's going to make Jackson Powers Johnson better. It's going to make Thayer better. It's going to make Dylan Parker better, Andre James, Colton Miller, and they're going to make those guys better. But Delmar Glaze, think about it. You know, you got JPJ, who's almost 330. I was told he'll probably be in that 324 to 326 range by time camp. But you got Cody Whitehair at 310. I like that bigger size of JPJ. I like some big in my alignment. These are three areas: retention, Three big questions about training camp. The biggest one we talked about the other day is the quarterback competition. Next is retention. That's a big one. JPJ, Cody Whitehair, big one. Thayer, Cassis, Delmar, big one. These are all big questions coming into training camp. But man, there's some good ones. We are 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away. And our long lost time wandering in the wilderness without football is over. Super excited. I know you are too. It's almost here. We got plenty more training camp questions to talk about. We'll get into all of those. Thank you for listening, everybody. I appreciate you. God bless you. Have a great day. We will see you tomorrow. Have a good one.